All right, what's up, everybody? I'm Jim Barry, and this is Miami Life. We, of course, are the show that takes the pulse of South Florida and lets you know what is top of mind amongst folks here in South Florida. Well, if you are a fan of the arts, we know South Florida is a great place to live. We have countless options for music, museums, and other cultural activities for a variety of tastes. But now, the arts community is reeling after being dealt a big blow by the veto pen of Governor Ron DeSantis. The governor cut all state funding grants for arts and cultural programs. That is more than $32 million. More than 200 organizations in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties now feel the pain from the unexpected financial cuts, and some organizations worry about being able to survive. Orchestra Miami is heading into its 18th season under a cloud of financial uncertainty. That's because Governor Ron DeSantis slashed $32 million from the state's budget for arts and cultural initiatives. It impacts organizations big and small.
I think, as everybody knows now, this was completely unexpected.
Elaine Rinaldi is the artistic director and conductor for Orchestra Miami. She says the group applied for $74,000 in grants this year, money that would have covered operational costs, including her salary and that of her staffs. She was expecting to see half that amount, but now she may not see a dime.
And that's the check that I rely on to pay my staff's salaries.
Orchestra Miami is asking for donations to help cover the shortfall, but it may be forced to charge admission to some events to stay afloat, something it hasn't done in the past. Miami New Drama, meantime, operates the historic Colony Theater on Lincoln Road. It also took a big hit from the budget cuts.
50% of our entire education department. That is, a third of production, or that is, two salary position. It's very complicated, especially post-pandemic.
For many smaller groups, the funding cuts could be a death knell. Local communities will also feel the impact. Art exhibits, dance shows, and symphonies help drive business to the merchants in their neighborhoods.
It's not just that the arts that are generating that revenue, it's all of the things around the arts. So the babysitters, the restaurants, the parking, whatever it is that goes into your having an arts experience.
Organizations, businesses decide to move because they want to be in areas where they have a booming arts and culture market. So I don't understand the logic behind it.
So now, when we reached out to Governor DeSantis for comment on his decision to veto arts funding, his office directed us to his comments at a news conference last week. And that's where he said his decision to veto the funding for arts programs was based on festivals, which he deemed inappropriate.
Well, if you look at, so this is money that would go, and we didn't have control over how it was being given. So you have your tax dollars being given in grants to things like the Fringe Festival, which is like a sexual festival where they're doing all this stuff. And it's like, how many of you think your tax dollars should go to fund that? Not very many people would do that. And so when I see money being spent that way, I have to be the one to stand up for taxpayers and say, you know what, that is an inappropriate use of taxpayer dollars.
All right, so now we're going to take a deeper dive into this topic. Joining us are two people representing organizations directly impacted by the governor's elimination of funding. Jean De Leon is the chief operating officer of Guitars Over Guns, which aims to empower young people through music and mentorship. And Myra Weaver is the founder and president of the Hollywood-based Florida Youth Orchestra, which works with musically gifted and at-risk students. I want to thank you both for being here. And Myra, let me start with you. You heard Governor DeSantis' explanation. Are you buying that?
Not at all. When he says they don't have control over where the money goes, that's not true. It's a rigorous application procedure. All the grant applications are reviewed by a select group of panelists who are very critical, and the allotted monies are determined by the legitimacy and the quality of your programming. To say that we don't know where the money is going, so we have to be watching it, it makes no sense.
How much money did your organization lose?
Just under $70,000.
And John, Guitars Over Guns, more than double that, right?
$100,000 up to $150, yeah.
Wow. So, and from people I've talked to, it's not just that you were cut, it's the timing of it, right?
What's challenging, Jim, is it's a year-long process to apply for this funding that's been in operation for decades, right? And many arts organizations follow, their fiscal calendar that they'll have to have their budget in place by July 1st, and to be able to have a decision that was already enacted by the legislature, right? And you've been working on this for months to make plans, to make hires, to think about the locations, in our case, the schools that we want to serve and the young people we want to engage, to have to then be put on your back foot, as your budget's already passed, puts you in a really compromising position.
So I can hear, Myra, perhaps the governor's office saying, well, look, times are tough, inflation is out of control, the state has other priorities, and we're sorry, but we just had to make some tough decisions. What would your response to that be?
The money was there. That's a fallacy. The money was there. It was allocated for the arts. It was recommended to the governor by the legislature. Everything was in place. Everything was available. And then a no.
So what do you think's really happening here? What's the motive?
We haven't gotten an explanation. There's no real explanation. I can't imagine justifying this decision, putting us at number 50 in the states of America in the arts and culture budget. It's shameful.
And of course, many of the programs that you guys sponsor certainly affect a lot of minority people because they can't afford many of the programs otherwise. So it seems as though a lot of this is particularly aimed at that group of people to whom you serve the most.
Think of it this way, Jim. I mean, we already live in a state that is up against it, trying to prioritize funding for the arts within the schools. So when many of the young people right here in Miami-Dade don't go to a school where they'll have access to specifically music and other arts programming, right? We lean on organizations like ours to fill the gap. So if you think about, an opportunity to like this, to cut away that funding, it's like kicking out the stool of the parachute to make sure that our young people, most of whom that have the least amount of access, now have even less. What sense does that make? And as a father, I think about my daughters growing up here in Miami. What legacy are we leaving for them to have cultural institutions and the fabric of our culture that we believe in, we know to be essential, not nice to have, must have, right? And this is eroding that.
So how do your organizations regroup, Myra, from something like this?
Well, we have many outreach programs where we serve the community beyond our programming and performance and education projects. Outreach that we do is affecting over 300 students in Title I schools who receive free after-school lessons and instruments from us.
You're saying they won't be able to get them now, perhaps?
We would have to cut it dramatically. We have a program for children with autism and Down syndrome. We do a program for senior citizens in nursing homes and rehabilitation centers, and we provide the musical entertainment for. We are a partner with Cleveland Clinic, Florida, for their arts and medicine, and we perform at the hospital. So much of this is serving the community in ways that you wouldn't realize at first glance.
And we heard from the director of that program that we're looking at now, Jano, and she pointed out that the arts drive so many other things in our economy. If people are going out to the theater or going out to some of the programs that you guys might be putting on, they're spending money at restaurants, they're calling the Uber, so there's a whole cycle here that could be at risk.
The economic impact doesn't make sense, right? If you think about $32 million cut from a 115.6 or 111 the $100 billion budget for the state, right? That's at less than 0.03 of 1% of the state budget. You're telling me that wasn't available somewhere else? And you think about the Herald recently reported that $150 million of economic impact was created by arts and culture organizations in 2022, right? The jobs that are created, the growth of the tax base, that's the economic impact is astounding. It just doesn't make sense. But frankly, more important than that is the loss to our cultural fabric, right? This is a knock to our humanity and what makes us us, what makes all of the wonderful creativity in the different regions of South Florida come together, celebrate what makes us different in orchestra settings, on stage settings, like we heard from Michelle Hausman, on Guitars Over Guns stages, right? And to take away to take away our opportunity to let that grow, it just leaves me questioning what legacy are we leaving. And honestly, my final feeling on it is the reality is that organizations like ours have always stepped in to serve the young people, serve the community, because we are fired up by that passion for the arts, right?
Sure.
You yourself, as an artist, you know how transformative that is. And I think it's time now to look to solutions, because if we're not going to have that leadership coming out of the State House, then we can leverage our local communities to fill the gap, patron, do all those things.
That's going to be my question, Myra. How can the community step up in the wake of what's happened here?
Well, as nonprofits, we're always looking for donations, for individual donations, foundations, corporate giving programs. We need to find new ways to supplement what we're going to have this year, because, as he said, we've planned our year's budget. We've put deposits on theaters and created programs, and we've bought sheet music, and all of these things were purchased or arranged with the intention of having that state funding to pay for a portion of all of these necessary expenses. So donations are much needed more than ever.
15 seconds, Jana. If Governor DeSantis were to walk in the studio right now, what would you say to him about this?
I'd ask him to come to one of our performances and feel for himself what we know to be true when young people are expressing themselves, are finding an opportunity to really live out their wildest dreams on stage, right? Be supported and in a safe and cultural environment, right? And when you know that, when you've experienced that firsthand, you don't make a decision like this.
Yeah. Jana De Leon, Myra Weaver, thank you so much for being with us, and I hope that you guys find solutions to keeping your programs alive and flourishing in our community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Up next in Miami Life, drowning dangers. But for parents of young children, it is time to be extra careful. Hear from one mom whose son almost drowned in their backyard pool. Also, rent in South Florida through the roof. We all know that. What is driving the sky-high prices? We're going to take a closer look at that when Miami Life returns after this. Welcome back. Well, for many people in South Florida, this long holiday weekend will involve a trip to the beach and backyard barbecues by the pool. But parents ought to be extra careful with their young children. Drowning remains the leading cause of death for kids ages 1 to 4. CBS News' Miami's Terry Hornstein talked to a Broward mom whose son nearly drowned 10 years ago. And a decade later, she is warning parents to take every precaution.
Maybe like 4 police officers, special victims unit came in with my gynecologist. And I mean, when 4 police officers walk in with your doctor, it's never good news.
Parkland mom of 4, Jenna Edwards, remembers that day back in 2014 like it was yesterday. Her second child just born, but soon the excitement of a new baby gone.
We did have a pool gate. We had all the safety measures we thought were important installed, but he still managed to get to our pool that day.
James, her oldest, not even 2 years old, was home with family members when he somehow slipped out of the door and ended up in the pool.
He did not have a heartbeat that they could trace for a really long time. He was cold to the touch, like almost freezing. And I remember I keep saying, don't you want to put a blanket on him? He's really cold. He's really cold.
James lived, but suffered a hypoxic brain injury, his brain cells dying from a lack of oxygen. He was in the hospital for 2 months. Today, 10 years later, this family has grown from 2 children to 4. James in a wheelchair, but usually full of smiles.
He really lives life.
For the last 10 years, James has gone through all sorts of therapy, physical, speech. He uses a tablet to communicate with his eyes and even gets in a bit of baseball.
My favorite team is the Miami Marlins.
Jenna says she remembers in the months before James fell in the pool, seeing drownings on the news.
But always thinking that doesn't happen to us. That happens to other people. That doesn't happen to people like us. And it does. It can happen at any time. It can happen any place. The most important thing is layers of protection.
Those layers of protection include barriers and alarms, supervision, life jackets, emergency preparation, and water competency, teaching children how to swim.
James lived in his puddle jumper. I have such cute videos of him bobbing around in the water and me saying, "What are you doing, James?" "Swimming." And in reality, all that did was give him confidence that he knew how to swim, so that when he saw an open body of water, he just jumped right in.
As his family's normal may look a bit different, you can feel the love. And Jenna says James teaches them important lessons every day.
Do I wish his life was different? Absolutely. I don't wish this on anybody. This is our life. There's being sad or dwelling on it, it's not going to change anything. So the only thing we could do is make the most of what we have. And I do believe we have so much. We really are very lucky people. While life has been different, it is still beautiful.
And that is, in fact, a beautiful smile. Thanks to Terry Hornstein for bringing us that story. We want to let you know that a new Florida law is now in effect that makes free swimming lessons available to many kids. So log on to cbsmiami.com for more information and resources. All right, still to come, the realities of renting. Anybody looking to rent a home or apartment in the area faces an uphill battle. We will explain why prices are so high and where renters can perhaps find a decent deal. Next on Miami Life. Welcome back. Anyone who's been paying attention to real estate markets in Miami-Dade and Broward knows that affordability is a huge problem. And it's not just homeowners feeling the pain in their pocketbooks. According to a report from Rent Cafe, we live in the tightest rental market in the nation. Demand far outweighs demand, which means renters are paying through the roof, even for tiny apartments. CBS News Miami's Tanya Francois shows us what the situation is like right now for people who are trying to rent.
It can be frustrating. It can be very stressful.
Devon Johnson moved back to South Florida 6 months ago. He's looking for something small to rent.
Well, for an efficiency or for a studio, about $1,200. No, I'm guessing no more than $1,500 will be great.
Monthly rent isn't Devon's issue. He says it's coming up with first, last, and the deposit all at once. We went house hunting across South Florida to see what the market is really like. We start in Lauderhill.
The 1 to 3 bedrooms can range from $2,100 to about $3,000.
We move a few miles south to Pembroke Pines.
It is a 2-story townhome. It has 2 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. It's approximately 1,170 square feet, and the current rental rate is going for $2,400.
Miami Gardens is the least expensive of all the places we looked at.
A 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo in the city of Miami Gardens. It's about 931 square feet, and the rental cost of this property is $2,000 per month.
Coral Gables is not only one of the pricier areas in South Florida, it's one of the most expensive in the country. That's where we found this rental. It's owned by Linda Lawrence Walden. She lives on the other side of the house. She says within 5 years, she's raised her prices hundreds of dollars.
It was like $1,500 5 years ago, $1,550. Yeah.
And with the market increase, of course.
It's just, yeah, after COVID, it went crazy.
According to Zillow, in the last 5 years, Miami-Dade rental prices have gone up 58%. In Broward, prices have increased 55%. Linda is now asking $2,250 a month for 900 square feet.
Yeah, the house was built in 1930.
The most expensive place we saw is also the smallest at 560 square feet. It's this 1-bedroom in Little Havana for $2,500 a month.
Insurance is going up, and I think renters are paying the price for owners' insurance going up.
Realtor Latara New Eddington Gay specializes in luxury real estate. She says while it's not a renter's market, would-be renters should feel a little hopeful.
Rental prices are decreasing. I don't think we're going to see a significant change. Like, we're not going to see a 20-30%, but maybe you see 16%, maybe you see 10%.
The realtors all say location is everything. Where you live versus where you want to play and how much patience you have with South Florida traffic are all factors in deciding how much you want to pay. In Miami, Tanya Francois, CBS News, Miami.
Times indeed tough. Tanya, thank you for that story, and we'll have much more on it, of course, as the days and weeks unfold. We'll be back with more Miami Life right after this. That does it for this week's Miami Life. Hope you have a very safe holiday weekend. Remember, we're on Thursdays live at 6:30 on the stream and at 10 p.m. on TV 33. And we want to leave you with highlights from the Florida Panthers Parade of Champions on Fort Lauderdale. It was raining, but it was still a wonderful time. See you next week.